What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 30 Minutes of Hell podcast. I am your host, Brandon Baker, joined as always by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. Quick reminder, we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff. We appreciate you taking some time to talk some Razorback basketball with us, even though that is becoming less and less fun to talk about this season so
Mhm.
far. Let's just jump right into it. Arkansas is now 0-4 in SEC play, worse start than they even had last year in a very down year before Muss left. And it's just been a very weird combination of things that has gotten us to this point. I don't feel like Arkansas's talent is as bad as their SEC record has shown. Um, but I don't really fully understand what the heck is going on. I mean, there's a lot of things you can point to as far as, I mean, we've talked extensively about the roster construction. We don't like that there's just nine guys. They've struggled with rebounding various times against various teams. They've struggled offensively against some teams, although that looked a little bit better against LSU. They scored their season high, their SEC high in points against LSU, but just such a weird combination of stuff. Of course, both of their top two transfers dealing with injury and confidence issues. Like, just I don't know exactly what the problem is with both of those guys. Adu is starting to look better, but Davis is still up and down, streaky, not the guy we need him to be. It's just been it's been a lot. What the heck is going on? I mean, what are you guys seeing in these first four games with Arkansas? How can we describe what is happening right now?
Well, we could just as easily be 3-1 as opposed to 0-4 in SEC play. I don't think there's any scenario in which we beat Tennessee in that first game, but these last three games have been very winnable games. We've just kind of collapsed in bad moments. And my New Year's resolution for this year is to be a little more positive. It's been a entire crapshoot what we've seen so far. Um, but but I there are, just a handful of plays that are keeping us from being 3-1 in these first four games. Um, I think one of our biggest issues is our droughts. I noticed it in the Ole Miss game where we had three or four different points in the game where it had been 3 to 4 to 5 minutes without a field goal. And I noticed it with LSU, noticed it with Florida. There's just we can't go multiple times in a game where we're not putting up any points. I feel like that goes without saying, but droughts happen. I'm not saying that they don't, but you can't have 12 minutes out of your game where you're not scoring points. That's shooting yourself in the foot. If your shot's not falling, you got to get to the line, and that's what the team hasn't been good at is realizing those lapses and trying to capitalize on them. And we talked about it last episode where we don't have that leader to kind of just get the team going in that area. But I think that's a huge problem so far.
Yeah, and I mean, calling it a crapshoot was being very positive. So that's a big thing. But yeah, I agree. The getting to the line part is huge. And not just getting to the line, but also converting. We convert a few more of those free throws. We beat Florida, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, shoot, how many did we shoot there? 35, and we shot 24 for 35. I mean, that's the difference of the ball game. You hit your free throws, you're good. But golly, yeah, get to the line, but be more consistent and get good shots. Make layups. We're missing layups.
Making the shots, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
like we're not necessarily getting bad looks. We're just not hitting them whatsoever. Like multiple open corner threes missed, wide open layups missed. I mean, it's just something's up. It just seems like everybody's off. I don't know what's going on. And I mean, we talked about last year how it's kind of the same deal. But shoot, we at least beat Duke last year. We can't beat LSU. I mean, this isn't something to not be concerned about. I know it's
Yeah.
early in the season, but I feel like as fans, we should be a little bit concerned. Why did we lose to LSU? Why did we let them come back on us when we started kind of tearing them up? And just beat us at the end of the game. And I, I just don't have words for what we can do better. We've mentioned it. I hope that we see something like this, something change Saturday, where we just see a brand new, like just full force team, like we saw in certain games, like against Michigan,
We saw it
and
several times against LSU. I mean, there were
yeah,
multiple runs against LSU where the Hogs went up 8, 10 points, whatever it was, that it started to look like, okay, this is the team that we expected to be. This
yeah,
is how you're supposed to handle a team like LSU, who's one of the worst teams in the SEC this year. And yeah, 100%, you're correct. It's the consistency, and it almost feels like this team gets on like a snowball effect. And I mean that in terms of game to game and also within the same game. It feels like when things start going poorly, the whole team just loses it. Like the momentum shifts so hard in the other direction. And I don't know if that's a energy or like a vocal leader. Like I don't know exactly what causes that, but I mean, even right now, losing to LSU almost feels like it's a trickle down effect of losing the other three games. Like we
yeah,
almost already lost by the time we came into that game.
yeah,
Brandon, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's Thero going down and missing a tough shot or missing a layup or something like that, and then being dejected about it, and then Fland, who he's a hot player, like he gets on his streaks. He's similar to Battle in that way, but he's a freshman. I don't expect him to make terrific decisions all the time, but he throws up some just crazy shots whenever they're trying to get going. Like there's just so many like little things that lead to like us getting in this funk, this and like you said, Brandon, the snowball effect. Like it's the demeanor, it's the attitude, it's the trying to shoot yourself out of a funk. Like it, I was thinking about this today. It's so surprising that I feel this way, but our best player this year in terms of consistency has been Brazil. And that was a guy who we did not expect to, come out after last season and do much. And you and I were talking about it in the LSU game, Brandon. His passing has gotten very good. He's taking his time. He's letting the offense come to him. He's not playing rushed and frantic like what he was last year. And I feel like that's a huge bright spot for this team because he's a guy that can make a huge difference. And if we can just pull this together from this terrible start, I feel confident if we were to make the tournament and get on a run with how just how some of our guys are like the spurts of really good basketball we're seeing from this team.
yeah.
Yeah, you just got to get hot at the right time, but you got to win a few games to get there first.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I need Boogie Flan to not just turn it on when we're down by 10,
That
because
was fun,
golly,
that last little
yeah,
stretch
he gave
though.
me hope there for a second.
Yeah.
I was about to shut the game off, then he goes down and hits a three. I'm like, wait a second. He got me excited, and then we go
But
down and
that's
give up a three. But
but
you
that's the
can't wait
thing
till the
is yeah, he'll go out and he'll throw up 14 points in a row, but
Mm,
his first half he's shooting 2 for 12. I
Yeah, he,
love the
he
guy.
hit
I love that he can get us those points,
yeah,
but
he hit four in a row late in the game and still finished 6 of 17. So what was that, like two of his first 13 or something like that?
yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's the consistency. And you even talk about Brazil being consistent. He didn't even play 10 minutes in this game
yeah,
because he was having issues. And so like, and I know that some of it, like the flagrant foul he got was very questionable. It was just kind of almost like a makeup call, or like they had to call it because of the flagrant that was called on the other end. So there was some weird, outlier stuff that maybe impacted Brazil in this game, but only two rebounds against LSU in 10 minutes of action. Did have two assists. Joey, you brought that up. He's averaging an assist a game this year, which is a improvement. It's pretty good to see him grow as a player like that. But he, as one of the more consistent players on this squad, is having games where we can't have him out there that long. And some of that is due to not being able to play him alongside another center that much, in my opinion. And it all goes back to roster construction, and just having one real center on this roster is it's killer. If Adu is not just dominating the paint, and he had 12 and 10 in this game against LSU, he shot almost 50% from the floor. For some reason, took three 3-point attempts, but
Yeah.
that another outlier. I don't know what some of those were late shot clock. He was the only option,
Yeah.
but I don't think he played bad in this game either. But it sucks when you have to throw Brazil and Big Z in those situations against other SEC big men because they're just not centers. They're not full-time centers. And I mean, we just continue to see that and the rebound battle over and over again. I mean, I think I saw a stat I looked up when I was writing my preview for the Missouri game. Arkansas is 10-1 this year when they tie or win the rebound battle. And I think they're like 2-4. Does that math that up? Like 2-4 whenever they lose the rebound battle, or maybe 1-4. Yeah, 1-4. So that I mean that speaks volumes right there. You lose the rebound battle, you're not winning the game.
Do you
And
know? Do you
we
know
don't.
who that one win is?
I let me pull it up for you. I had it right here.
Probably UCA, you know.
I think I think the loss was Baylor, but let me look. Yeah, the loss was Baylor. Let me
That's
pull the other
crazy.
one.
But you
Yeah.
know, they say it in 2K all the time. The team that wins the rebounding battle wins the game. So
I do say that in 2K all the
all
time.
the time.
The one win was Troy. We were out rebounded by
Okay.
7 against
Yeah.
Troy, and we still won. And then the losses: Illinois, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida, LSU. And those are probably the 5 teams that we played. Well, LSU is not better than us, but the other 4 teams are probably the 4 only teams that we've played that I would say are like actually better than we are, right? And maybe, it was a big win over Michigan. Michigan is looking better than we are right now, but we out rebounded them and we won that game. Um, so yeah, that's probably the biggest key. I talked earlier about how there's so many variables that go into what's going on, but the rebound battle is really the biggest thing at this point, and it's goes back to roster construction. You got to have guys that go and get those rebounds. Um, I also wanted to, yeah, Joe, you mentioned earlier the going on droughts and scoring runs and stuff. I think it's Evan Maya posted on Twitter. He does a lot of good stuff. EvanMaya.com does a lot of good stats and stuff. But he had posted a chart of like the kill shot teams, and it's teams that go on 10-0 runs versus how many 10-0 runs they allow in a
Mhm.
game. And Arkansas is like almost at the bottom of the chart in terms of 10-0 runs that they go on, and they're very middle of the pack in 10-0 runs allowed. And it's in his what he's labeled it as like the suspect teams that are not trustworthy to win games because they
Mhm.
can't go on runs. I mean,
Yep.
basketball is a game of runs, and if you can't do it, you're going to lose a lot of games for that reason. Um, so offense, rebounding, depth, right? I mean, I feel like we're beating a dead horse with all of those things, but it lost us 2 more games this week. Games that we could have won. A home game against a good team, away game against a team that we definitely should have beaten. So,
Yep.
I yeah. Before we move on, quick update about recruiting. Mohamed Silla looked like he might be a Razorback lean earlier in this week. There were conflicting reports coming out about kind of on the back channels about whether or not he would be a Razorback. Reportedly got offered a pretty big bag to go to Georgia Tech, and Cal kind of backed off of that asking price. If the reports are true, he was asking for about the same amount of money that Darius Acuff is getting, the number one point guard in the class. So I kind of understand not paying that much for him because he's a very raw center that doesn't really have offensive skill as much as he does just he's big and strong already for his age and a really good rim runner, shot blocker, tries to dunk everything he touches, like that kind of player, like a maybe a little bit smaller Daniel Gafford type player, but I understand not paying that much for him, but he is the type of player that I want on this roster next year. I don't want to have to rely on Big Z to be our full-time center or have another transfer like Jonas Adu miss half the season. Like I want a young guy that can do this kind of stuff. Obviously, Scylla has already committed to Georgia Tech, but I want a player like this for next year, whether it be a freshman or a transfer portal, however you get it. And another thing I wanted to point out too that I had forgotten about until recently, next season, college basketball is expanding the roster size. Instead of only allowing 13 scholarships, you're now going to be allowed 15. With NIL, it's kind of already been in question. I know last year, Must technically had 14 guys that were considered scholarship guys, but one of them was a walk-on that was just getting NIL, basically. But now you have 15 legit spots plus walk-ons. So I'm hoping that will allow Cal to expand his roster construction strategy a little bit. If the way that this season has panned out hasn't already changed his strategy a little bit. But hopefully he still goes maybe for those 4 end of the bench guys that don't do much. And now we have 11 guys that contribute instead of 9. That's kind of my hope, but we'll have to wait and see for this summer.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be right back and preview Mizzou and take a little look ahead at Arkansas's upcoming schedule and how they might be able to get back on track here coming up soon. So we'll be right back.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this. You get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph fandom app. But here's the best part. The more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider the level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast.
All right, Saturday, Arkansas on the road again, plays Missouri, ranked number 26 in the net rankings right now, 33 in KenPom, and they're kind of like polar opposites from the Hogs if you just look at the metrics on how they've been playing this season. Arkansas is like around 75 offensively, and most of this is coming from KenPom's adjusted metrics, but like around 75, pretty not super good at offense, and I mean we've seen that, but their defense is still decent enough, like top 30. And I think a lot of that comes from their first shot defense. They just don't close out possessions with rebounds, right? Like they force a lot of misses. They just don't necessarily always get the defensive rebound. But then Missouri is the opposite. So their offense is the top 25 offense. They shoot decently well. They've got a couple guys that can get hot in a hurry, but their defense is close to that 75 mark. So kind of the polar opposite of what Arkansas is. Gives me a little bit of hope maybe that our offense can score a little bit because we saw some offense against LSU, right? They scored 70 plus points for the first time this season. And then from there, it's just can our defense do enough to contain their offense, because it did not do enough against LSU, right? There was a lot of defensive lapses, mental mistakes, letting them get out on fast breaks, and just weird stuff happening in LSU. So that's something with Missouri. They're a better offense, a better team than what LSU was. Definitely have to see improvement on that side of the ball. Some players to call out. Honor Boateng, that name sounds familiar. It's because he is from Arkansas, Little Rock native, chose Missouri over the Hogs this summer. Has not really found his role with this team this season. He actually started the first several games for Missouri and has slowly kind of been phased out of the rotation. So it's likely we don't see a lot of him unless the coach just wants to play him against his, his hometown school or his home state school. But besides Boateng, you've got Mark Mitchell, a Duke transfer, leads them in points, big 6'8" forward, almost 14 points a game. Tamar Bates, about 13 points a game, another kind of bigger guard that can shoot decently well. But then Anthony Robinson and Caleb Grill are really the two guys that I'm watching that we can't let get hot from the outside. Robinson hits about 42% from three, and Caleb Grill is at 49% from three.
Good Lord.
Crazy.
And he's coming off the bench in most of his games, but that's a guy that you can't let get going, right? I mean, we saw, who was it, in LSU, Cam Carter started hitting some shots, started feeling it a little bit, and we just had no answer. He just did whatever he wanted. I'm worried about that with Caleb Grill. And then another guy that I'm watching a little, hopefully don't have much to worry about with him, but Josh Gray has started several games for Missouri this year, but the last 3 games has actually been kind of relegated to a bench role. But his rebounding has gone up over 3 rebounds per game since he's been on the bench. And
Wow.
if you guys remember back when we had Anthony Black and Nick Smith and that whole group, when we went to South Carolina, their big man had a career day out of nowhere. He was averaging like 6 points a game. He put up 20 and 14 against the Hogs and almost beat them by himself. It was Josh Gray before he transferred to Missouri. So I'm a little concerned that um, because of the struggles we've seen with rebounding, I'm a little concerned about how you hold someone like him when he's averaging almost 9 rebounds over his last 3 games. Missouri as a whole is not a great rebounding team, especially compared to what we've seen lately, right, with Florida and Tennessee and teams like that. But if Josh Gray comes out and gets another 14 rebounds and 6 of them are offensive, you're not putting yourself in a position to win, right? So back to the rebound battle that I've been harping on. That's a big one to watch, even whether he comes off the bench or not. And then the last thing to mention with Missouri, they're a team that really forces a lot of turnovers. I mentioned that their defense is not super highly rated in terms of like uh, forcing other teams into bad efficiency or necessarily low scoring, but they're a high turnover team. They take risks, take gambles, and on their home court, I feel like that's even a bigger factor, right? Taking care of the ball on the road in front of that away crowd. So that'll be a key to the game to watch is the turnover count and how many steals, live ball turnovers that Missouri can force in this game. Um, we're getting to the point in the season where it's pretty much you got to win, right?
It's must win,
0 and
for
4
sure.
is 0
Yeah.
and 4 is not a good setup to start NCAA tournament talk, and this is going to be a tough game. I mean, they're ranked better in almost every metric than Arkansas on the road. I think it still can be winnable. I mean, we've seen Arkansas's talent, but from here on out, every time you have a chance to close out a game and win, you've put yourself in a position where you've got to do it. You've got to come home with a win. So I'll leave you guys with this question, I guess, overarching heading into this Missouri game, and then a theoretically lighter stretch over the next few games. I know there are actually no games in SEC play that are easy, but what are you looking for specifically for improvement over this game against Missouri specifically, and then over the next few, whether it's the offense, the rebounding I'm talking about, what are you looking for?
Is everything a good answer? Better everything. Uh, in all honesty, what I want to see is effort, really. I just feel like we haven't had any. This team doesn't just scream like, I'm going to try my absolute hardest. I think the only 2 people that I've seen try and work their butts off are Billy Richmond and Brazil. I feel like those two really do try, and really do give everything they can, even if it's not the thing that we need. You can always count on Billy Richmond to go crash the boards in hopes to get a rebound. And Brazil is always trying to impact the game in some way because he technically needs to. I mean, he's coming up on his senior year next year, and he wants to make the NBA, so he's got to show some talent. So I know he's working. I know Billy Richmond's working because he wasn't supposed to be here in a lineup rotation. I mean, we didn't predict it, and he's working his butt off. So I want to see that energy from everybody, and that's all I can ask for, really. I think with that, offense comes, defense comes, shooting comes because they're working for it.
Matt, do you have any other answer other than effort? I feel
Dude,
like you give that
because that's
every episode.
it probably is because we don't show any of it. We don't show any of it.
What number pod is this, Brandon? Is this like our 35th episode or something?
Golly.
Matt has had 35 requests for more effort from the Razorbacks.
Dude, I'm telling you.
No, that's a really good one. We definitely need to see, more energy from the group as a whole. Like you said, Matt, there's a couple guys that give it consistently. There's a couple guys who give it in spurts, depending on which way the ball's rolling for them. But I'm with you, Matt. I want to see everything. I want to see Brazil get more minutes. I want to see him keep up his consistent play. I want to see Thero really take on a leadership role. And I think I said this either last pod or the episode before. Thero is our best player. I mean, he's arguably the most athletic player that I've ever watched in college basketball, outside of maybe Zion or Brennan, like you and I were talking about, that kid from Michigan State. That I just want to see with the amount of talent and athleticism that he has, he could easily be a 20 point per game guy, and he could give us, 6, 7 rebounds a game. He could get us 2 steals a game. Like, he's just the type of guy that if he gives that, 35 minutes of effort or 32 minutes of effort, then he's by far our best player. I want to see us start getting into a role, getting into a rhythm. I don't want to see these droughts, these multiple, 6, 7 minutes of no scoring a game. I want to see us, even if we're not hitting field goals, I want to see us getting to the line and hitting free throws. There's just it's consistency with me, and I feel the same as you, Matt. I feel like a broken record saying consistency, consistency,
Right.
consistency, but we're just not seeing it. It's always, we'll go on a really strong run, like what I almost said battle, what Flan did by himself at the end of the LSU game. I want to see that consistently throughout the entire game. Like, I want to see him, taking smart shots. I want to see our entire team taking smart shots. And if you're not hitting those shots, get to the line. We preach on if a shooter is not hitting shots, the best way to get back into a rhythm is get to the free throw line and see the ball go through the hoop. I want to see us start capitalizing on some of that.
And for me, I've been, talking about it all episode for a couple episodes, but it kind of plays into both of your points, right? Rebounding is an effort stat a lot of the time. And that's not like, I think some of our bigs are doing okay at it, but when you're struggling as a team rebounding, it's got to be everybody. It's got to be Boogie and Davis and Wagner, Knox. Everyone that's on the court has to be in the paint, and that's an effort thing. And then to Joey's point about the droughts and everything, I think that, I mean, I said it earlier, I'm not mad at our defense most of the time. We do fine on initial defense, like on initial sets that the other team is running. We defend things pretty well. We just have such a problem closing out possessions, even if it's a late shot that goes in or if it's an offensive rebound that then turns into second chance points. But when you start giving up those offensive rebounds, it kills your momentum. It breaks the run that you're on. It doesn't allow you to get going on the roll that you're wanting, that you're looking for, Joey. So I think for me, shoring up the rebounding effort as a team checks a lot of the boxes that we're seeing issues with, if that makes sense. Like that, I think if you can do that as a team, it then forces you to play with more effort it doesn't allow the opponent to get into their rhythm as much. It gives you more opportunity to start getting on a roll, to maybe push out for your own 10-0 run, whatever the case may be. So I mean, that's what I'm looking for. I mean, the stats that you have one loss when you out rebound your opponent and only one win when you get out rebounded, that's wild. I mean, it speaks
Which
for itself.
it's crazy that we're even harping on rebounding when we have Adu, Brazil, and Thero. Like, why
And
why is this such an issue?
yeah, and I would love to see Linus with the three of them on the court together, but it gets really difficult if Thero and Brazil are not hitting, right? Because Thero right now is 0-4 in SEC play from deep. So if he's not hitting threes, Brazil has hit some, but I feel like he's hesitant to take them
Yep.
sometimes. But if you have all three of them on the court together, and let's say you run a pick and roll with Boogie and Jonas Adu, you've got DJ Wagner, Brazil, and Thero on the wings as your options, right? And so if the defense is forcing Thero or Brazil into a 3-point shot, a lot of times that's a win for them because they're not hitting that well right now, right? So, but yeah, I agree with you. When you've got those guys, you should be doing it, but it also takes everyone. You can't just have two guys average 6, 7 rebounds a game and that's it. It's
Yep.
got to be everyone that does it.
And I think we need to see the rebounder of John L. Davis because we came in thinking what position was he in like best rebounding guards? Like wasn't
Yeah,
he
I
pretty
don't
high
remember the
up?
number, but yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, he's good for his position as a rebounder for sure. Yeah, or he
if
used to.
if he wants to lead by example, there you go. Go in and get a rebound and go get a tough layup. Because dude's big. I mean, he's a strong guard and just
Mhm.
weight wise, he's a bigger guard. So get in there, bully some kids, and get that ball down and put it back up. Get some offensive rebounds. That's where I think he's going to succeed the most because his shot is just not there right now. Just go
Yeah.
in and do the dirty work.
I'm
And
happy you brought that up, Matt, because he was actually one of the bright spots for LSU because
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. He had a season high 3 offensive rebounds. And you know what that
yeah,
led to? Putbacks. He shot 50% from the field. He had 10 points against LSU. He actually had a
yeah,
pretty good game
yeah,
offensively. He had too many turnovers and he was a big problem with some defensive lapses. But I mean, you're exactly right. He got some offensive rebounds. He hit a couple of threes. It helped him get into his rhythm, right?
yeah.
He had 5 rebounds in that game, which was his most in the last like I think 13 games that he's played, and 3 of them were offensive, which were the most that he's had as a Razorback. And he had one of his better offensive performances of the season. So, I mean, spot on. That I agree
Yeah.
completely. He's one of the biggest factors of what I'm talking about of team rebounding.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's get a win, please. I don't want to finish this week sad. I just want to be happy. That's the
Yeah,
biggest
and
thing.
looking forward just a little bit beyond Missouri. If you do manage to pull out a win on the road here, your next 2 games are at home versus Georgia and at home versus Oklahoma. The Oklahoma game is the first quad 2 game of SEC play. Doesn't mean it's an easy game, but it's lighter than what we've seen, right? Like those first 3 teams we played are all legit second weekend tournament teams already. So you managed to get a win against Missouri. Maybe you rattle off 3 in a row. You're back on track to at least pushing for tournament contention, right? I mean, I still see the goal as 8 SEC wins. 9 makes it more comfortable. But if you get to 8 and 10, you make it hard on the selection committee to leave you out. So I'm still gunning for 8 wins. If you get 3 in a row here and get to 3 and 4, that becomes a lot more doable, even with brutal games still ahead. And even just talking about that, looking ahead to, I noticed the last 5 games of the season are maybe the most important stretch. 3 of the 5 games are at home, but you've got Missouri for the second time this season, Texas for the second time this season. Neither of them currently ranked in the top 25 in any metrics. South Carolina on the road, who is the worst team in the SEC this year, Vanderbilt on the road, who is probably second or third worst next to LSU, and then Mississippi State at home, who has come out and shown that they're pretty good, but it's a home game. It's the last home game of the season. So those 5, you win those 5 in a row at the end. I mean, you just have to set yourself up to where those games still mean something. You have to win some of these now so that you don't get there and even 5 in a row doesn't do anything for you.
Right.
So this next stretch of games is very important. Starting with Missouri would be a huge win to pull this one out on the road. But we'll just have to see. Have to see the effort, the rebounding, see if they can pull it together. And that's all we have for you guys today. Appreciate you tuning in to talk some Razorback basketball with us. Quick reminder, we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff. Please be sure to like, retweet, comment, subscribe, share, whatever it is you do on those sites. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. I've been your host, Brandon Baker, joined by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. And as always,